Some relationships make you feel alive. Others make you feel like you're drowning in slow motion, gasping for air in a room full of oxygen. You know the difference, not by the words exchanged, but by the knot that lives permanently in your stomach, by the way you rehearse simple conversations in your head to avoid triggering an explosion, by how you've learned to make yourself smaller just to keep the peace. This isn't love struggling through a rough patch. This is something else entirely, something that's been slowly poisoning you while wearing love's mask. If you enjoy deep psychological insights that challenge what you think you know, feel free to subscribe. Let's begin. Have you ever felt your heart rate spike the moment you see their name on your phone screen, not from excitement, but from fear of what mood they'll be in, what you did wrong this time, what punishment is coming for a crime you can't identify? Have you ever found yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, for feelings you're allowed to have, for existing in a way that somehow always manages to be wrong? Perhaps you've spent hours analyzing a conversation, trying to understand how a simple comment about dinner plans escalated into you being called selfish, manipulative. The reason everything in their life is falling apart. Or maybe you've stood in front of your closet changing outfits 3 times because you know that whatever you wear, they'll find something to criticize, something to use as evidence that you don't respect them, don't care about their feelings, don't understand how hard they're trying. There's something uniquely devastating about a relationship that hurts you while insisting it loves you. It's not clean like a breakup or clear like betrayal. It's a fog that descends so gradually you don't notice when the air became toxic, when normal stopped being normal, when you started believing that managing someone else's emotions was your job, your failure, your responsibility to fix. And the most dangerous part is how it disguises itself. They say they love you. They cry when you threaten to leave. They promise to change. And sometimes they do, for 3 days, maybe a week, before the cycle starts again. And in those brief moments of peace, you convince yourself that the nightmare is over, that this time is different, that you finally found the right words to make them understand. But here's what nobody wants to admit. Toxic relationships don't happen because 2 people are incompatible or because love wasn't strong enough. They happen because one person has learned to survive by making another person smaller, and the other person has learned to accept smallness as the price of connection. This is not a failure of communication. This is not something that can be fixed with better conflict resolution skills or couples therapy or more understanding on your part. This is a pattern, a system, a carefully constructed dynamic where one person's stability depends on the other person's instability, where peace for one requires surrender from the other, where love has been twisted into something that looks more like ownership, control, a war you're always losing because you're the only one who thinks you're supposed to be on the same side. The conventional wisdom tells you that relationships take work, that love means fighting through the hard times, that leaving when things get difficult is giving up too easily. But what if I told you that this framing is exactly what keeps you trapped? That the work you're doing is not building something together, but holding together something that's breaking you. That the hard times are not a season to weather, but the actual nature of the relationship. That staying is not loyalty, but self-abandonment. Because that's the truth buried underneath all the apologies, all the promises, all the moments of tenderness that make you believe you're wrong to want to leave. You're not in a relationship that's struggling. You're in a relationship that's functioning exactly as it was designed to. With you confused, diminished, constantly trying to earn back the treatment they gave you in the beginning, the version of them that doesn't exist anymore, if it ever existed at all. To understand why you can't leave, why you keep going back, why you believe it will be different this time, we must first understand what's actually happening in your brain when love becomes poison. When they're cruel to you for 3 days straight, silent treatment, cutting comments, cold indifference, and then suddenly they're affectionate again, touching your face gently, saying they're sorry, promising they'll do better. Your brain doesn't register relief. It registers a dopamine surge more powerful than anything consistent kindness could ever produce. This is intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive, and it's happening in your relationship every single day. The unpredictability is not a bug in the system. It's the feature that keeps you hooked. Your brain is being conditioned exactly the way a laboratory animal gets conditioned to press a lever. If the reward comes every time, the behavior is learned but not compulsive. But if the reward comes randomly, unpredictably, with long stretches of nothing followed by sudden delivery, the behavior becomes obsessive. You keep trying because you never know which attempt will work, which version of yourself will finally be enough, which day they'll wake up and be the person you fell in love with. The good moments are not evidence that things are improving. They're the bait that keeps you pressing the lever, believing that if you just find the right combination, the reward will come consistently. But there's something even more insidious happening beneath this. What you're experiencing is called trauma bonding, and it's fundamentally different from normal attachment. When someone hurts you and then comforts you, when they create the wound and then offer the bandage, your brain forms a connection stronger than any healthy relationship could produce. The cycle is predictable. Tension builds, explosion happens, reconciliation follows. Calm briefly exists, then the cycle repeats. And in that reconciliation phase, when they're apologizing, when they're holding you, when they're promising change, your body floods with oxytocin, the bonding hormone. You're literally becoming chemically attached to the person who's hurting you, and the attachment strengthens every time the cycle completes. This is why leaving feels impossible. You're not just ending a relationship, you're withdrawing from a drug. The person who causes you pain has become the only person who can relieve it, and your nervous system has learned that relief, even temporary, even purchased with your dignity, is worth any price. Studies show that trauma bonds activate the same regions of the brain as cocaine addiction. The craving, the obsession, the inability to stay away despite knowing it's destroying you. These aren't character weaknesses. These are neurological responses to a pattern that has hijacked your reward system. Then there's the cognitive dissonance, the mental gymnastics required to hold two contradictory truths simultaneously. They love me and they hurt me. Your brain cannot accept both as equally true, so it constructs elaborate explanations to bridge the gap. They're under stress. At work, they had a difficult childhood. They don't know how to express emotions properly. You're too sensitive. You misunderstood. You provoked them. The relationship isn't the problem. You are, or they are, or the circumstances are, but the relationship itself. The pattern, the dynamic. That remains protected, untouchable, beyond examination. And beneath all of this runs the sunk cost fallacy, the devastating logic that keeps people trapped in deteriorating investments. You've already given 3 years, 5 years, a decade. You've already sacrificed friendships, career opportunities, parts of yourself you can barely remember. If you leave now, all of that was for nothing. The time is lost. The energy is wasted. The suffering becomes meaningless unless you can transform this relationship into something worth what you've paid for it. So you stay, investing more, hoping that enough investment will finally force a return, not understanding that you're throwing good years after bad, that the debt is compounding, that every day you stay costs more than the day before. But the chemicals are just the beginning. There's something more insidious happening to who you are, something that operates beneath conscious awareness and transforms you into someone unrecognizable. When did chaos start feeling like home? At what point did you stop recognizing yourself in the mirror, stopped trusting your own thoughts, stopped believing that relationships could feel any different than this constant state of alert? The answer lies further back than you realize, in the years before this relationship existed, when patterns were being carved into your nervous system by people who were supposed to protect you but instead taught you that love always comes with conditions, with pain, with the need to be smaller than you are. Consider the child who grew up walking on eggshells, learning to read the emotional weather of their home before entering a room. Was mum in a good mood or a bad mood? Was dad going to be warm or cold? The child who learned that love was not steady but changeable, not predictable, but dependent on factors they could never quite control. That child developed a special skill, the ability to monitor, adjust, accommodate. They learned to make themselves invisible when anger was near. They learned to be entertaining when sadness descended. They learned that their job was not to have needs, but to manage the needs of others. And now, as an adult in a toxic relationship, that skill feels natural. The hypervigilance doesn't register as abnormal because it's been their baseline since childhood. Or think about the child whose parents showed love only when they performed correctly, when they achieved, when they made the parents look good. Love was not something given freely. It was something earned through being perfect, through never causing problems, through making everyone else comfortable. That child learned that their value was not built in, but conditional. They learned that being loved required constant effort, constant monitoring, constant adjustment of who they were to match what others needed. And in adulthood, when a partner treats them poorly and then occasionally treats them well, it feels normal. It feels like love. Because love has always meant working hard to deserve affection that could be taken away at any moment. Then there are the children who grew up in homes where yelling was normal, where doors slammed, where tension lived in every room. They learned that chaos is what family feels like, that drama means people care, that intensity equals love. Calm feels suspicious to them. Peaceful feels boring. When a relationship is turbulent, when emotions run high, when every day brings some new crisis, it feels right. It feels like connection. The toxic relationship is not a departure from what they know. It is a return to the only template they have for what relationships look like. Some people learned even earlier that their feelings did not matter, that speaking up brought punishment, that expressing needs made them a burden. These children learned to silence themselves, to push down their own pain, to prioritize everyone else's comfort over their own survival. And as adults, they cannot recognize abuse, because they were taught that their discomfort is not evidence of anything wrong. They were taught that their job is to endure, to accommodate, to make it work no matter the cost to themselves. What all these origins share is a single terrible lesson. Love is not safe. Connection requires sacrifice of self. Relationships mean managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own. And this lesson does not announce itself. It lives quietly in the nervous system, in the automatic responses, in the patterns that feel like personality, but are actually adaptation to environments that were never safe enough for a child to simply be. This is why you did not see the red flags. This is why the behavior that would make others run felt familiar to you. This is why you keep believing that if you just try harder, accommodate more, love better, things will change. Because you learned long ago that love requires this kind of work, this kind of suffering, this kind of disappearing. The toxic relationship is not teaching you something new. It is activating something old, something that was planted before you had words to name it. But while you have been trying to love someone into changing, they have been taking pieces of you that you will not get back easily. The cost of a toxic relationship is not measured in the arguments you can recount or the insults you remember. It is measured in the person you used to be, who no longer exists. Look at yourself honestly. When was the last time you made a decision without first calculating how they would react? When was the last time you expressed an opinion without softening it, qualifying it, preparing to defend it? You have become smaller, quieter, more careful. The vibrant person who existed before this relationship has been compressed into a version that fits inside the narrow space they've allowed you to occupy. And the most devastating part is that this compression happened so gradually you barely noticed it was happening until one day you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the anxious, diminished person staring back. They have rewritten your reality so many times that you no longer trust your own perception. You remember an argument one way, but they insist it happened differently, and their certainty is so absolute that you begin to doubt your own memory. You feel hurt by something they said, but they explain that you misunderstood, that you're too sensitive, that you're imagining malice where none existed. And because you want to believe them, because the alternative is admitting that the person you love is deliberately distorting your reality, you accept their version. You apologize for being hurt. You question whether your feelings are valid. You learn to distrust the most reliable source of information you have, your own experience. This is gaslighting, and its effect is not just confusion, but a fundamental erosion of selfhood. When you cannot trust your perceptions, you cannot trust your decisions. When you cannot trust your decisions, you cannot trust yourself to survive without them. They become your interpreter of reality, the authority on what is true and what is imagined. And you become dependent on their version of events because you have lost faith in your own. This dependency is not accidental. It is the goal. Because a person who doubts their own sanity cannot leave. A person who needs external validation for their own experiences cannot function independently. They have made themselves essential by making you doubt everything except their authority. Then there is the isolation, which arrived so slowly you did not notice it was happening. First, they made comments about your friends. Harmless observations that your best friend talks about herself too much, that your college roommate is a bad influence, that your family doesn't understand you the way they do. Then came the guilt when you spent time with others, the sulking, the accusations that you care more about them than about your relationship. So you started declining invitations, you stopped calling as often, you let friendships fade because maintaining them cost too much in arguments, in guilt, in the exhausting work of defending why you need people other than them in your life. And now, when things are at their worst, when you most need support, you have no one to call. They have become your entire world, not because you chose isolation, but because they systematically dismantled every other connection until only they remained. Look at what you have accepted that you once would have considered unacceptable. The name-calling that you now tolerate because at least it is not physical violence. The monitoring of your phone that you justify as them caring about you. The criticism of your appearance, your intelligence, your competence that you have internalized as truth. You have moved the boundary so many times that you no longer remember where it started, no longer recognize that what you are living in is not normal, not healthy, not what love looks like in functional relationships. And beneath all of this accumulates the shame. Not shame for what they have done to you, but shame for staying. Shame for being smart enough to know better, but not strong enough to leave. Shame for becoming the person who makes excuses, who hides bruises or emotional wounds, who lies to family about why you seem different. This shame isolates you further because admitting how bad it is means confronting how long you have let it continue. If leaving were simple, you would have done it already. If it were just a matter of recognizing toxicity and walking away, the relationship would have ended months or years ago. But everyone watching from outside sees only the surface. They see someone staying in obvious dysfunction and cannot understand why. They say, "Just leave," as if those two words contain any acknowledgement of the invisible chains wrapped so tightly around your psyche that movement feels impossible. What they don't see is the architecture of the trap, the psychological mechanisms that make staying feel safer than the terrifying unknown of leaving. Consider what leaving actually means. It means stepping into a void where you do not know who you are without them, where you have to rebuild an identity that has been systematically dismantled. You have spent so long defining yourself through their eyes, measuring your worth by their approval, organizing your entire life around their needs, that the question of who you are independently has no clear answer. The toxic relationship is painful, but it is known. It is predictable. You understand the rules, even if the rules are designed to hurt you. But leaving means confronting the vast uncertainty of being alone, of making decisions without their input, of existing without the structure, however damaging, that has organized your days. And the human brain, when given a choice between known pain and unknown possibility, will choose the known almost every time. Then there is the hope that has been carefully cultivated and strategically maintained, because toxic people are not toxic all the time. If they were, leaving would be easy, but they have moments of tenderness, of vulnerability, where they become the person you fell in love with. They cry and promise change. They go to therapy for 3 sessions. They are kind for a week. And in that week, you see the relationship you have been fighting for. the person you know they could be if they would just stay this version of themselves. And that hope becomes its own addiction. You are not staying for what is. You are staying for what could be, for the potential you have glimpsed in those brief moments of peace. You are gambling everything on the belief that this time will be different, that you have finally found the right words, the right approach, the right version of yourself that will make them choose to change permanently. But beneath the hope and the fear is something even more binding. The investment you have already made. You have given 3 years, 5 years, a decade to this relationship. You have sacrificed friendships, career opportunities, parts of yourself you can barely remember. You have shared experiences, built a life together, accumulated possessions and memories, and a shared history that feels too significant to walk away from. The sunk cost fallacy whispers that leaving now means all that investment was wasted, that all that suffering was for nothing, that you just need to hold on a little longer and eventually you will get a return on what you have put in. The logic is seductive. You have already paid so much. Surely the payoff is coming soon. Surely giving up now is the only true failure. And then there are the practical barriers that reinforce the psychological ones. The apartment you share where both names are on the lease. The finances that have become entangled. The children who complicate every equation. The shared friend group that will fracture, forcing everyone to choose sides. The family who has grown attached to them, who will question why you are leaving, who might not believe you when you explain. These practical considerations feel insurmountable when combined with the emotional weight of departure. So you tell yourself you will leave when the lease ends, when you have more money saved, when the children are older, when the timing is better. But the timing is never better. The barriers simply shift, taking new forms to justify the same paralysis. What you do not realize is that the moment before leaving is always the hardest moment. That terror you feel at the thought of departure, it will not get smaller while you stay. There comes a moment in every toxic relationship when something shifts so fundamentally that continuation becomes impossible. When the spell that has kept you bound finally breaks, and you see with sudden, devastating clarity exactly what you have been living in. This moment is rarely dramatic. It is not always the worst thing they have done. Sometimes it is a Tuesday afternoon when nothing particularly terrible has happened, and you realize you have been holding your breath for 6 months. Sometimes it is the smallest comment, one you have heard 100 times before, but this time it lands differently. This time, instead of absorbing it and adjusting yourself around it, you hear it for what it is: cruelty. And once you hear it clearly, you cannot unhear it. For some, the breaking point arrives when they see themselves through someone else's eyes. A friend mentions casually that you seem different, smaller, less yourself than you used to be. Or your child asks why you are always sad, and in their innocent question, you confront the reality that you have been modeling dysfunction, teaching them that this is what love looks like. Or you catch your own reflection during an argument and see the fear in your face, the cowering posture, the defensive stance of someone who has learned to protect themselves against the person who claims to love them. And in that moment of external perspective, the elaborate justifications you have constructed collapse. You cannot explain away what you see in that mirror. The breaking point also comes when the pattern becomes undeniable. You have been tracking incidents as isolated events, but suddenly you see them as a sequence, a cycle that repeats with such precision that you can predict what comes next. Tension builds over days or weeks. The explosion happens, they rage, they withdraw, they punish. Then comes the reconciliation, the apologies, the promises that feel genuine in the moment. Brief calm follows where you believe it is finally over. Then the tension begins building again, and you realize you have lived through this cycle 10 times, 20 times, 50 times. Each time you believed it was the last time, each time you were wrong. And the recognition that you will live through this cycle forever, unless you break it yourself, becomes the catalyst for action. But the breaking point is also the death of hope. And that death is its own kind of grief. You have been sustaining yourself on the belief that they will change, that your love will be enough to transform them, that the person you glimpsed in the beginning will return if you just find the right combination of words, the right level of patience, the right version of yourself. But at the breaking point, that hope dies, not because you stop loving them, but because you finally accept that love cannot fix what is fundamentally broken in the dynamic between you. You cannot love someone into respecting you. You cannot sacrifice enough of yourself to make them treat you with basic human dignity. And accepting this means accepting that every day you have spent trying to save this relationship has been a day lost to a fantasy that will never materialize. What makes the breaking point so difficult is that it demands action. As long as you could maintain hope, you could justify staying. As long as you could tell yourself it might get better, you could endure. But once you see the truth clearly, once the pattern becomes undeniable and the hope dies, staying becomes a conscious choice to participate in your own destruction. You can no longer claim ignorance. You can no longer say you did not know. The breaking point strips away every excuse and leaves you facing a single question. Am I willing to sacrifice the rest of my life to someone who has shown me through consistent action that they will not change? And here is the truth that changes everything. Leaving will be hard. Staying will be harder. One difficulty has an endpoint, the other is permanent. We have reached the final truth, and it is both simpler and more difficult than everything that came before. Real love does not hurt like this. Real love does not require you to become smaller, quieter, more careful. Real love does not leave you exhausted from managing someone else's emotions, walking on eggshells to avoid explosions you cannot predict or prevent. What you have been calling love is not love at all. It is a distorted counterfeit. Intensity mistaken for intimacy, chaos mistaken for passion, control mistaken for care. And the moment you understand this distinction is the moment healing becomes possible. For those still trapped, transformation begins with a single uncomfortable admission. Staying is not loyalty. Staying is not patience. Staying is not evidence of how much you love them. Staying is self-abandonment. Every day you remain in a relationship that diminishes you. You are choosing them over yourself, their comfort over your safety, the fantasy of who they might become over the reality of who they are showing you they will always be. And that choice has consequences that compound with time. The longer you stay, the smaller you become. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to remember that life can feel different than this. The longer you stay, the more you teach yourself that your boundaries do not matter, that your pain is acceptable, that your worth is negotiable. If you are building an exit strategy, understand that leaving requires planning. Financial independence if you share accounts, a place to stay where they cannot find you, support from people who will not pressure you to return, a safety plan if there is any risk of violence, documents, valuables, anything irreplaceable packed and moved before you announce your departure. Because toxic people do not accept endings gracefully. They will promise change with more conviction than ever before. They will cry, threaten, manipulate, do whatever is necessary to reinitiate the cycle. And if you are not prepared for this, if you have not built external support structures before you need them, you will return. Leaving once is hard. Leaving 7 times before it finally sticks is common. But every return teaches them that your boundaries are negotiable, that promises of change are sufficient without actual change, that you will always come back. For those who have already left, understand that healing is not immediate and not linear. You will miss them. You will doubt yourself. You will romanticize the good moments and minimize the bad ones, forgetting why you left in the first place. This is withdrawal, and it is temporary, but it feels permanent when you are inside it. No contact is not cruelty, it is survival. Every conversation gives them an opportunity to pull you back in, to deploy the techniques that worked before, to remind you of the hope you finally let die. Block the number. Delete the social media. Ask friends not to pass along messages. Protect the fragile. New life you are building from the person who spent years tearing down the old one. And know this: healing means learning to recognize what healthy love actually looks like. It means understanding that real relationships feel peaceful rather than chaotic, that genuine partners build you up rather than break you down, that love should not require constant effort just to maintain basic respect. The intensity you mistake for passion, that is not normal. The drama you think proves depth of feeling, that is dysfunction. Real love is steady. It is consistent. It is boring compared to the adrenaline cycle of toxicity. But boring is safe. Boring is sustainable. Boring is what allows you to grow instead of just survive. The world does not need more people who endure pain in the name of love. It needs people who understand that their worth is not dependent on someone else's ability to see it, that leaving is not failure, but self-respect, that the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own destruction. Toxic relationships teach us what we will tolerate, where our boundaries are, and what we truly believe we deserve. Sometimes the most loving act is walking away from someone you love, because staying means abandoning yourself. Take a moment to notice whether the relationship you are in builds you up or breaks you down. The answer matters more than any promise of future change. What should we explore next in the psychology of relationships? Drop your ideas below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more psychological insights. Those who know their worth refuse treatment that diminishes it. Those who have healed recognize peace as more valuable than passion. Those who love themselves never settle for anything less than reciprocal respect.